Today we are going to be building on this massive mega park in Theme Park Tycoon 2, which features realistic roller coasters and incredible detail. But before we begin, make sure you drop a like and subscribe so you never miss a new video. And without further ado, let's get straight into the time lapse. So as the time-lapse is going on in the background, I'd just like to thank you guys so much for the recent channel success with us reaching an amazing 130 subscribers, which I can't thank you guys enough for. It was also ridiculous, we hit it within like a month as well of starting this YouTube channel, which to me is just crazy. But yeah, I'd just like to say again, thank you so much, because it just means the world, and hopefully we can try and reach 150 before the end of the year, as that would be a perfect way to start off the new year in 2025 with us being on 150. So if you would like to see that, make sure to subscribe as well, as it would be really appreciated. If you also want to keep up to date with the new channel information, then make sure to join our Discord server in the description below, as that's where all the new updates and episode releases will be as well, so make sure to just join that. But yeah, anyways, now that we got all of that out of the way, in the background I begin working on the Outer Bank's first main support structure, as originally I tried to create 3 standard support columns for it, but it didn't end up looking the best in the end, so I decided to make it into one main structure, like the first drop on Annora. As in my opinion, it ended up looking a lot better than the 3 individual support columns that I had before. So I ended up by doing that later in the time-lapse by connecting the first support structure being built into connecting it with the second one, as then it made this like slanted design which ended up looking quite nice. Also, make sure to stick around to the end of the video, as there will be a final cinematic of the area and support columns all finished after the time-lapse, which ended up looking amazing in the end in my opinion. But then I started to move the first support column to connect with the second one in the time-lapse, so then it forms that massive support structure for the Outer Bank, and then it just ended up looking so much more better than the 3 individual support columns, because it just didn't look right. But then I go around adding cross supports and the flanges to the supports just for those extra details that make Annora look so much more realistic, which, it just looks amazing. Then I also go around adding the different paint levels with purple at the bottom and white at the top, a bit like Hyperia at Fort Park, as that was the basis for Annora, and I'm glad I did unmac Hyper in the end, because it just worked so well, especially on the park's skyline. I mean, most of you could probably already guessed that with the drop and then the Immelman afterwards looking exactly like it, but oh well. And then after that, I go to connect the final support to the track in the support structure, just for that extra support that you would find in real life. I then also add the flanges to the custom spine because of it was missing those for some reason, which I thought I'd added them before, but apparently I didn't. I also had to use a different type of flange for there, because otherwise it wouldn't work with the item limit. I tried to use the more detailed ones before, but it just kept running into the item limit, as the flanges used for the supports are a lot more detailed and a lot more piece heavy than the ones I ended up using for the spine. But after I ended up finishing the spine, that first support structure for the Outer Bank ended up being finished, and it looked incredible in the end. But then after that, I moved on to working on the nature and the detailing in the trench for the family Vekoma Boomerang Draco, as I'd suddenly got an idea of what to do with the area, including the theme, as I decided it would be like a mining area that ended up being a dragon's home, hence the name Draco. And the story would go that humans decided to create a mine here, as there was a lot of useful resources in the area, but they accidentally ended up digging into a dragon's home, so the dragon then went to defend its home, which then links well with the coaster being a boomerang, as it's like the dragon is attacking the humans. But I wanted to add like extra nature and that to the area, as it was lacking it before, as the rock wall just seemed a bit bland before, but with the vines and that, it made it look a lot better. I went around adding more grass, more rocks, and then adding like berries to the bushes, as it just added more depth to the design in my opinion. With then me later just going on to start this storage area for the area, as like a place where the humans would store all their equipment for the mining, for the digging, and also like food, tents, and etc. I also started working on these wooden support platforms, a bit like the humans were digging in those certain areas. And then that's where they would stand, they would dig, and then I think in the next episode I'll go adding more details like ladders and tools and drills that will just like add to the scenery around and make the area look more finished, as there's still a lot more work to be done to the area and as it's still missing a few buildings. I also need to finish up the final rock wall on the other side, as I forgot to do that in the time lapse. But anyway, back to the time lapse. I then just go adding to the storage area I talked about before with adding this rubber texture to the top of it, which made it look like a cloth overlay, as the time period wouldn't be around the modern era yet for this area, as it's kind of a mix between medieval but also somewhat modern era, as I didn't want it to just be set in the past, kind of. I wanted it more to be a hybrid of the two, or like a split reality kind of. A bit like Klugheim in Phantasialand, because it is medieval but at the same time it's also its own separate theme. I wanted to then, but this design ended up working for the area a lot better than most of the other concepts I came up for the area. Like one of them before would have been a dragon's nest in the middle of the area, but I tried to make it, didn't end up looking the best. So I ended up scrapping that idea and then thinking about it and then end up going with this idea, which worked so much better. Which also gives me a lot more freedom with what I want to do with the area, as it could just be mining, but I could also add like homes and stuff, as if they set up like a temporary camp because of the resources there. But another idea that I may do in the next episode is adding a waterfall to the area, as the area is next to the river for the park, and I could add like a little pond in the bottom, which just makes it look a lot more polished and finished, because it just looks a bit barren at the moment with just grass mounds everywhere. But then I add this like wooden design to the tent with like cross bracing and stuff, a bit like you'd see on fences, as it just added more detail to it without me having to go over the top with adding so many different like nuts and bolts instead, as also I don't think that would look the best on this design. But then anyways, I then go on to make this lamp design, as the base model in the game doesn't really look the best, so I wanted to add like wood and metal outlining to it just to add that more depth, and also so then it fits better within the theme, as the ones in games are more modern instead of them being more like those candle lit lamps back in like the 17 and 1800s. I also didn't want to make it look too old, otherwise it just wouldn't look the best either, so I decided to do a metal inside with a wooden casing, which ended up looking quite nice. But then I go around to change the handles. I make one design didn't really look the best, so then I used the new primitives, the new like circle primitives, as then I could do like a rounded handle, which ended up looking a lot better. And I also go around changing the colour of the light, as before it was too yellow. I wanted to have it more orange, more like warm colour. But as it's nearing the end of the video, I'll leave you guys off with the remainder of the time lapse. Make sure you stick around to the end for that final cinematic. Thank you guys so much for watching to the end of this video, and let's check out that cinematic.